All right, I will call the September 2017 Isicsb board meeting to order. May I have a roll call vote, please, or roll call of the board members?
Jeff Swearingen. Patrick Updike.
Present on the phone.
Jeff Sunholm. Marty Smith.
Present.
Tom Lampy.
Present on the phone.
John Benson.
Present.
Bob Van Wolfrat. Denise Pavlik. Andy Buffington.
Present.
Ellen Hagan.
Present.
Deb Krubble.
Present.
Dave Ness.
Here.
Jason Leonard.
Here.
Rob Rotter.
Here.
Mike Casper. Carol Lund Smith.
On the phone.
Larry Smith.
Present.
Linda Frederickson. Kelly Grosskirth. Got 12. Got a quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Ethan. All right, can I have an introduction of board member? All right. Always like music. Woo. All right, need a introduction of board member starting the ones on the phone. Tom Lampy, go ahead.
Tom Lampy, DPS.
Patrick?
Patrick Updike, Iowa Department of Corrections.
Okay. Anybody else on the phone? Carol?
Carol Lunsmith, ILEA.
Any other board members on the phone? Okay, hearing none. Start down here to my right. Deb?
Deb Cravel, Marion Fire Department, representing the Iowa Professional Firefighters and the Iowa Professional Fire Chiefs.
Andy Buffington with Winnebago and Hancock Emergency Management Communications, representing communication centers.
Larry Smith, Kika County Emergency Management.
Jason Leonard, Waverly Police.
Chris Myers on the SWIC.
John Benson, Iowa Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Ellen Hagan, Joe Fire and Rescue, representing volunteer firefighters.
Marty Smith, Iowa Department of Public Health.
Rob Rotter, Iowa County Sheriff, representing sheriff's offices.
Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to our guests that are here in the audience as well. We're going to keep moving here. Before I get into the approval of today's agenda, I just want to make sure that I was letting everybody here know, and the board members are on the phone, that due to some people that are in our audience that need to jump off the line, I'm going to move item number 19, the other reports, up to right after our elections, so that we can get the reports from those individuals first. So I'll just keep moving. Anybody have any issues with that? Did I move 19 up after our elections? Okay. All right, so seeing our agenda today, can I have an approval for today's agenda? A motion for that, please.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Been moved and seconded. Any, obviously with the change to it, any discussion on that further? All those in favor of the agenda signify saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right. The approval of meeting minutes. Everybody's had a chance to take a look at the minutes. Hopefully, if not, take a look at them now, and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Dave.
Second.
Thank you, Deb. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Corrections, anything? Hearing none. All those in favor of the minutes as printed signify saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. So moving on to our elections of board personnel, of board management. I can't really remember how we've done this in the past, if whether or not we've started with the president, or I should say the chair's role and the vice chair's role. I'm open to entertainment on nominations. We can start with the vice chair if we'd like, get it out of the way. So,
If you're willing, Jason, I'd recommend to nominate you continue to serve, if willing to do so, in the vice chair. I think you've done an outstanding job in supporting Tom and supporting the entire board.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Ellen. So, is there any? I heard a motion in a second, and I will be willing to serve. I would be willing to serve, continue to serve as the vice chair if you obviously allow me to do that. So if I guess at this moment in time, do I hear any other motions for anybody else?
Nomination 6.
Okay. All right. So without any further discussion on this, all those in favor of nominating me as the vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll be glad to continue the effort. So moving on to the chair's position. The chair's position, any motions for the chair spot?
I would motion Tom Lampy retains chair.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Buffy. Thank you, Ellen, again. Any other motions for board chair position? It is very important. It's very vital that he is there. So, branch goal. Hearing no other motions, any other further discussion on this? Hearing no other discussion on it, I will signal everybody in favor of this. I'm stumbling over my words this morning, so Blake's giving me that look. So, all those in favor of Tom Lampy continue to act as the chair of the Isicsb board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Tom Lampy is still the chairperson of the Isicsb board. So, moving on to number 19 on the SWIC report. Before we move on to number 19, Melvin, you can start coming up here. I do have a question. Tom, are you on the line still?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right. I just want to make sure that if we have any other items that need business, if we lose you, will we still have a quorum? Okay.
I'll still be there any minute. You are one. You're
Okay.
flush right now. Should be there any second.
Okay.
But I will not drop off until at least 11 o'clock, and I'll have to drop off the meeting that I have to attend.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the items that we have for business and stuff that we're going to need to have that for. Most of the other stuff is reports only. So just want to make sure that we have a quorum to make sure we take care of those business items. So, all right.
Looks like the new business is the approval of Jasper and Wright County.
Right. I see Bobby W. just walked in, so anyway. Melvin, go ahead.
I'm waiting for them to bring me that cable.
Okay.
I can plug it in. I just plugged it in.
Plug that one in. Okay.
Yep. All right, can you guys see it? Perfect. All right, every month seems to be pretty busy, so I went directly to show on each region. On Region 1, we have 72%. On Region 5, we're at 75%. Region 3, we got 69. Region 4, 76. Region 5 is a little behind at 58. So overall, we're in the 70s. So when you look at the overall project, we're sitting at about close to 70%, 69% right now. So a lot of stuff has been happening. So when we look at the current activities, obviously we had a big focus on the state fair, so that kind of froze some of the activities that we were doing. We want to make sure that that was successful. We also presented to the Iowa Association of Counties, which was actually very good experience because we had the opportunity to share with a lot of folks about the progress of the system, and that was news to a lot of people. So we got a lot of visibility for that and a lot of interest because of that as well. We're currently working on the Des Moines site reconfiguration, which we're planning for, and that has to do with some work that's being done at the rooftop that we have to pull down the site for a small amount of time while they fix the roofing, and then we can reinstall some of the equipment. Part of that is also the integration into that particular site into the Westcom cell. We've been doing a lot of civil site completion work right now. So we're working on the certification. So we have the state and a consultant and our team working throughout the sites. And that in itself is a pretty big undertaking because we're kind of spread throughout the state. So as an example, these are all the sites that we are looking to have completion certification for the state right now. So pretty busy. As I mentioned, we're close to 50 sites right now. And we wanted to more, but some of them kind of fall out into the next quarter, which is fine. We kind of manage everything on a quarterly basis. So if it falls into next week or even a couple of days after, we don't count it in here. So obviously a lot of activity. We've been here since Sunday, visiting all the sites, and so we're kind of spread a little bit thin right now because we want to make sure that we have the right people walking all the sites. So that in itself is a huge milestone because we're still on track to getting, I would say, at least 95% of the sites done by the end of the year. All right, so we continue with the microwave dish installation, which is a parallel process, and that involves some of the optimization and the tuning so that sites can see each other. We had some administrative issues with power. We've overcome those, and now it's just a matter of dealing with all the backlogs of sites. So we had sites completed. We just needed to apply the power to them so we can light up the tower lights, particularly the new towers that we have scattered throughout the state. We had issues with getting power to the actual site. So some of that was process specific. So we figured out that we actually have to go through the fire marshal for the state in order to get those certified so that we can power those sites up. We've been doing it on a county by county basis. Every county and every city does it differently. So it's not a cookie cutter approach, so that was kind of complicating the process. So now it's just a matter of getting into the queues and scheduling all those power ups so we can do that. We're still working in the internal process within the state to have the DNR sites locked. I think we're still in pretty good shapes. We only have, I think it's only 2 DNR sites that we're working on right now, so they're not showstoppers. We have 2 sites that were rejected, as I mentioned this before. The first site, we actually have we've identified a fix, and even though we lost time on it, we had to reset the regulatories because of the move. We've actually recovered some of that, so we're still going to be able to have that site built by the end of the year. And then the last one here, this particular county also rejected us. So we've identified an option that would basically just forego the county. We're still working with the county so that we can build there, but if not, then we'll switch over to this secondary site so that it no longer becomes the critical path. We've also identified all the lease sites, and they are ready to go. We haven't hit the go button on those yet, just in case some of the other sites fall off. We usually leave the lease sites for last because those are the most difficult to deal with. So the option is we go lease if we really can't do anything else. So we've identified those. We have right now, if, for example, this particular site here, the critical path, if we go lease with that one, we would have a total of 6 lease sites for the state, which is not bad when you consider the amount of tower sites we have scattered throughout the state. That's all I had.
Thank you, Melvin. Any questions for Melvin? Okay. Thank you, Melvin.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Denner.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and the board. Rob Denner from the city of West Des Moines. I was asked to give a little after-action review of our recent hosting of the Solheim Cup here in West Des Moines. A little bit about the Solheim Cup. It started back in 1990. It's essentially the ladies' version of the Ryder Cup, pitting the United States women's team against the European women's team. Some attendance numbers from the last few years. Final attendance numbers here in West Des Moines were 124,000 and change. Probably most notable out of all those numbers is that about 50% of them were from outside the state of Iowa, including 27 countries, mostly European. They estimated between 5,000 and 8,000 people coming over from Europe to watch this golf tournament. It was August 14th through the 20th at Des Moines Golf and Country Club. The massive undertaking to turn that golf course into a venue to host an event of this magnitude was absolutely amazing. 60 suites and skyboxes, they were referred to as tents around the course, the largest one being 165 feet by 165 feet. It held thousands of people. There was over 30 hours of live television, both on the Golf Channel and NBC. And then 2 country music concerts on Friday evening, Jake Owen and Rascal Flatts on Saturday evening for their entertainment. The accommodations, we filled up the Metro because those dates coincided with the state fair, which I think served well for those visiting from out of town that they were able to attend the state fair. But we took over a number of hotels. There were no hotel rooms available anywhere in central Iowa. In the Metro, there's 12,000 rooms and another 2,000 or 3,000 as far away as Ames and Boone and the periphery around it. We filled them all. A little bit about West Des Moines, though. We started this hosting golf tournaments back in 1999 when the U.S. Senior Open was here. Hosted about 250,000 people then. In the interim years, we've been hosting the Principal Charity Classic at Glen Oaks Golf and Country Club. It's since moved into Des Moines. And then I think ultimately what landed us the Solheim Cup here. Just a view of the course. Some of these tents, that we'll call them, this was the first tee box. This was a 2-story, fully air conditioned, hands servants waiting on you, serving whatever you needed. These were $1 million donors that were in these suites. One of the named sponsors was the DuPont Pioneer, that they had a suite up there. Just amazing to see the infrastructure brought in. This was the stage area where not only the opening and closing ceremonies were held, but the 2 country music concerts. If you'll notice, let's see if you can see this pointer. Can you guys see the mouse? These 20 stalls, 1 through 20, were for the buses. Public parking was actually off-site up in Urbandale, and they were having to bring in buses, and this was an open grass field a few weeks prior that they were able to lay down a suitable surface for these buses to pull in, and had a steady stream of buses for most of the week, and especially on the weekend when things were going on. That Wells Fargo Pavilion in the lower right corner, that's the 165 by 165 foot tent, fully air conditioned. You can see in the CAD drawing in the upper left here, it's the yellow building. All those little black dots are actually banquet tables inside. It really is just amazing. So the other players, from our perspective, we started our planning about 18 months before the event actually occurred. So certainly here in the city, police, fire, EMS, Westcom, Public Works, our city administration, the other cities around, Clive, Urbandale, Waukee, Polk and Dallas County, the sheriffs and emergency management, the state level DPS, DOT, the Iowa National Guard's 71st Civil Support Team, Homeland Security, the Weather Service, and even private entities such as Permar Security and Mercy's Ambulance Service. A little bit about Westcom, for those of you who don't know, we put up an 800 analog system back in 1997. It was a Project 16 compliant system. Westcom was formed in 2001 with the consolidation of West Des Moines, Clive, and Urbandale's PSAPs. Then in 2014, we upgraded to a digital P25 system. And just last year, May actually, of 2016, we transitioned to the Isicsb, which is where I'm standing in front of you today telling you that Isicsb up and running here at Westcom. Westcom today, though, we serve about 155,000 people, 127 square miles of the 5 cities. Since the original formation, Waukee and Norwalk joined. 11 public safety agencies, 12 public service agencies in our school district, for a total of about 2,500 subscribers that are on live today. So at the Solheim Cup, we established a communications unit, appropriately named GolfCom, that was in a 40-foot mobile office trailer provided by the LPGA. We staffed it with tactical dispatchers or radio operators. They operated off, you can see in the lower right-hand corner. Sorry about that. Hold on. The lower right-hand corner there, those tactical dispatchers operating off of consolettes. We had both wired and wireless telephone, public internet connection. It was a 100 megabit symmetrical connection. CenturyLink actually ran fiber throughout the course to support all of the different vendors and operational partners that were there. The city is heavily embedded with Microsoft. We have a couple other data centers over the hill here, and we use Microsoft products. And so Microsoft SharePoint, our Microsoft microsite, where we were maintaining all of our NIMS forms, 205s, 205As, 214s, and such. We had access to the National Weather Service. There was a weather partner that the LPGA brought in also, but we subscribed to a service called WeatherTap. And also Skype for Business, that having multiple layers of communication, so not only radio communications, but across the network using instant messaging and even the wired and wireless phones. There were a lot of redundancies built in. Back at dispatch, we set a dedicated dispatcher at a tactical console configuration that this person was not dispatching anything for the 5 cities. They were solely managing the outer perimeter events, certainly for the traffic load. And that screen that you see there is their console configuration, which included none of what our normal talk group usage is. So our activity log, our 214, here you can see from Monday through Sunday, the number of events that we logged, a total of 839 entries. This could be as simple as someone reporting somebody doing something not right and turned out to be nothing. Clear up to there were a number of ambulance transports off-site, criminals arrested for different things. But as you can see, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday were our busiest days. Here were the number of personnel that were working on site that steadily grew throughout the week. And the list of the agencies, I've gone over most of those that not only our local partners, but those around us, our neighbors, even state and federal assets that were there. Here's how we designed the talk paths for communications. In the far left column, the main interior ops channel, we linked together. Each city has a City 1 talk group. So West Des Moines, Clive, Urbandale, and Waukee, City 1 were patched together. DPS was there, State Patrol was providing escorts downtown to the hotels, the official hotel downtown, the Marriott. So they're event 7. We linked in one of the regional tactical talk groups, ITAC 14 for the Dallas County folks that were assisting, and then one of the non-federal national interoperability channels at 800 megahertz, 8TAC 94. So those 4, 5, 6, 7 Channels and talk groups were patched all week long and were the main operations channel. Then we had a west and an east exterior operations. Those were the 2s and 3s, event 8 and 9, and the regional tax, TAC 15 and 16. We shared a couple command interoperability and tactical interoperability talk groups because the state fair was going on. We've been involved in their planning efforts, and we're coordinating that if either event on either side of town grew into something larger, that we would both likely end up on here in the metro called Mixed Calling and Mixed TAC 1, which are these VHF, UHF, and 800 non-federal national interoperability channels. We had it patched to us, we had it patched to Event 6 for DPS, and the regional calling channel 11. The rest are e-tax, encrypted tax, and general tax over there on the far right were just for dynamic assignment throughout the week for, depending on if any of the disciplines got busy with anything, we could dynamically assign those. So for the week on the main operations channel, there were 3,187 push-to-talks for a total of 8 hours, 35 minutes, and 13 seconds of talk time. Our busiest hours, the top 3 there are listed. Friday afternoon from 1 to 2 o'clock. I think what happened was the sun and the heat got a little warmer, and there'd been plenty of alcohol being consumed throughout the morning, and it sort of all hit after lunch. So there were a number of, call them patients, that needed some attention. Nothing really bad. I think we only transported 1 in that period, but then even the next hour, 2 o'clock, still continued to be pretty busy. The Sunday afternoon one at 3 o'clock was actually the closing ceremonies. And to point out there, we took, I mentioned all those talk paths that we had. We actually moved them all into one patch and ended up with 17 talk groups in a patch so that everyone was together because everyone was at the closing ceremonies at that point. Most significant to point out is that we had 0 busy signals throughout the week. There were none, either for on our streets or at the event. There were no busy signals on the system. The big users, the on-site Golfcom dispatcher had 2,830 push-to-talks. They talked on the radio 4 hours and 51 minutes. Jody Hayes from West Des Moines PD was the interior commander most of the time during the week. Adam Porath was the exterior commander managing traffic. The dedicated Westcom dispatcher at 1,800. David Edgar was the EMS commander on site, and then Randy Cooner from State Patrol was coordinating State Patrol's transports back and forth from downtown. So we had a lot of people talking. The other thing that was interesting was all of the radio frequency energy generating devices that were brought out. The LPGA brought in a 16-channel UHF Moto Turbo system just to support their operations with about 243 radios. This was all of the LPGA's folks. Our 17 talk groups that we were using, the non-federal national interoperability channels, Verizon brought in a site on wheels. Wi-Fi was very saturated. I mentioned CenturyLink brought in that. I ran fiber down through the course. There were wireless access points all over the place. So I brought in our spectrum analyzer and drove around for a while, and all of the scorekeepers had devices that were communicating scores and things back. The camera crews from all the Golf Channel and NBC had stuff transmitting back. It was just amazing that nothing interfered, or we had no reports of interference with us. That it was pretty amazing. This device here, to the left of the television trucks, was the Chem Bio monitoring equipment from the CST that they had spread around the course, monitoring for any bad stuff. So some of our lessons learned, we need to do some more radio training. Public safety does great because we use a radio every day. But in our first aid tents, we had physicians and nurses from the hospitals, and they're great at saving lives, but they don't talk on the radio very well. So we need to do some training for them, just briefly, the push to talk, let up to listen kind of things. The second one is plain language. We discovered just because of the multitude of agencies that were involved, there were some that chose to use plain language or continue to use radio identifiers and not some of the, it's much easier to say I'm at 88th and Civic or 88th and University than somebody's regular call sign, because then I got to go look up where that call sign is, or I got to look up what a 10 code is. So using plain language and call signs plain language for call signs and eliminating the 10 codes is good. We also needed more talk groups available for dynamic assignment. That 1 and 2 o'clock hour on Friday afternoon, we filled everything up and discovered that we could have used more. So for next time, when whoever comes next, we'll be ready. So I have just a short little video with some more pictures here. It was an awesome event to host, very successful on a lot of different levels. So thank you for allowing me to share that. If there's no questions, thank you.
Quite the undertaking. Thank you. All right. If there's no questions for Rob, we'll move on to Jim Lundstedt, please.
There you go. I certainly don't have any briefing slides to present today, but do have just a couple of topics I wanted to run through with you for awareness. First was that the Secretary of Homeland Security yesterday issued a binding operational directive. That's executive language speak for the executive branch agencies of the U.S. government shall follow this guidance, informing agencies under the President's control that they are not to utilize Kaspersky Labs, antivirus software, and related vulnerability products. If your city, county, community, or even you use Kaspersky, you might want to read the stories about where perhaps there are some vulnerabilities. While I cannot endorse nor deny any product, I would urge you to be aware that there are some concerns with that, and your U.S. government will not be using that product any longer for antivirus and various types of port control capabilities. I was fortunate enough to attend COMEX here in Des Moines last week, the final day of the Iowa National Guard COMEX. That was actually tangential to a similar four-state COMEX that happened in Southwest Missouri. I'll let your SWIC cover that, but I will say that I was able to visit all the venues, talk to a number of the operators. It was very strong success. And the things that didn't work, those are things you can solve. And in the next challenge, whether it is in battle or in response, you'll be better prepared. It was very, very well done. Coming to your SWIC fairly soon will be the opportunity to request fiscal year 2018 technical assistance from the Office of Emergency Communications. We do a number of different things, including exercise support, communications planning. You just heard an excellent example of how West Des Moines utilized tools to put together communications plans, including tactical dispatch and incident command works when we remember the tenants. We're learning some of those lessons right now with responses in Harvey and Irma's path about how ICS does work, and it is scalable when we speak the same language and we remember the fundamentals we've been taught. Speaking of operational things, I've been sharing with your SWIC as requests have been spinning up for other agency assets to come in to assist either in Texas, the Caribbean, or in Florida. What we know about operational communications, specifically tactical interoperable communications field guides for the states where other states may be asked to respond under EMAC. I don't share those broadly because of the sensitive nature of the content, but your SWIC is a resource for that, and I've been repeatedly tapped on the shoulder. Hey, what do you know about Harris County, Texas? Or do you have a contact in Beaumont, Texas? Or what do you know about the Caribbean? We have assets along with peers in FEMA that have a lot of operational knowledge. And although I wouldn't program my radio based on that fog, if your communications personnel at least know in responding to a specific state, for example, North Carolina, that you're going to need to have 800 megahertz radios, and you might want to have the 800 megahertz non-federal interoperability channels in it, they're better prepared once they get there. Once again, feeding that to your SWIC, that's how we support the SWIC, and hopefully if there is such an activation or a deployment, you'll have an opportunity to talk to him. In the region this week, I'll echo something I reported to the 911 Council. We've had a large city and a number of smaller municipalities and a couple of counties that have been the victims of cyber attacks, specifically ransomware attacks. In this region, this week, we had a county that was the victim of such an attack that affected their PSAP operations. It denied them access to GIS data, CAD data, and the ability to access their communications network through their consoles, which are PC-based. Ransomware is not something that comes out of the blue. It is typically shared via phishing or spear phishing attacks, the best advice I can give you, as this is an active incident, is to remember the fundamental thing about email in your organization, whether you're a city, county, state, fed, or tribe. The same words apply: stop, think, connect. If you received an email that is unsolicited from somebody who invites you to click on a link, please don't go there. Think about that. This stuff that got into this particular county system, we're still investigating. The FBI is the lead on that, as it's a domestic incident. Somebody somewhere did something they shouldn't, and unfortunately, in today's interconnected society, we have a wall-to-wall problem. That community is still in recovery, and the county is still in providing limited services based on that. Operational communications, I've talked to you all and speak at the just about every exercise about the use of GETS and WPS. Some stats you might find a little interesting coming out of the Harvey and Irma response. We talk about this little card, and everybody says, well, who uses a telephone calling card? The Government Emergency Telecommunications Service, or GETS card, will allow an authorized user to place a call that overrides network congestion that is put in place either intentionally or unintentionally in the wired network. Now, when would you need to do that? If you are an operator or a commander that you need to reach in, or someone at an incident scene that needs to reach out. I hate to disclaim this, but you first have to have dial tone. We can't do anything for you just because you have the card. But if you do have dial tone, for example, on September 11th, which was a heavy response day in Florida, we had 1,872 calls replaced with a 98.5% completion rate. That means the caller routed around the congestion with the high probability of completion software flag, and the call was completed. 98.5%. We tell people with GETS, we expect at least a 95%. In the 5 days leading up to September 11th, so this would include portions of Hurricane Harvey, we had slightly over 14,200 calls with a 98.56 completion ratio. So that involves calls originating in Florida, Texas, and all of the cooperators, whether you're a responder in or a responder to, or an agency that's supporting. The last thing I'll call to your attention is yesterday, the U.S. Congress passed a House resolution that had been moving around for several months. It now rests on the president's desk. It is called the Sandy Act, Survivable Assets of Networks and Disasters. If you recall the Post-Katrina Reform Act, there was a lot of discussion about resiliency and capability to sustain public communications, i.e. paging, wireless, cellular, and there were some findings that were binding through the FCC on our commercial carriers who provide service. This particular act sets a 3-year window for the FCC to do some fact-finding and come to agreement with carriers. In my particular realm, I saw some very intriguing things that happened as we set up for Irma. For example, one of the wireless cable companies who has a lot of Wi-Fi assets turned them all open in advance of Sandy to support not only their customers, but others who need access to Wi-Fi. This particular act already has the carriers talking among themselves how they will respond. But just to give you a glimmer of how serious this problem can be, if you don't have generators and you're dependent on batteries at a cell site, and we have many, after a couple of days, you don't have cell phone service anymore. And although that doesn't affect us in the push-to-talk realm quite so much, it does our citizens. So I'd urge you to take a look at the Sandy Act. We've been told that the president will act on this bill sometime next week, and there will be an opportunity to comment to your carriers to let them know what you think. Any questions for me? Thank you, sir.
Again, Jim, always with a lot of information. Thank you. If there's no other information sharing amongst board members, I will move back on to item number 8, the SWIX report. Moving on. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Vice Chair Leonard. We will start off with the skip this month. This has been taking a significant amount of time of coordination and conversation amongst the board members, and I'm happy to report that we are almost complete with it. We've sent out draft versions of the skip, although they're not complete as far as content or formatting. I think it's a good baseline for everybody to look at. We're still missing the action items for 2 committees. We will hopefully have that resolved within the next couple of weeks. And then I think we're on pace for the board to see this by October and then perhaps take some action on it. So more or less we are on schedule there at this point. Next week, just so you guys all have a heads up, I may be a little bit difficult to reach at times. I will be heading to Dallas, Texas for an FPIC meeting that covers the ISSI and CSSI next week. And I'm going to bring our concerns to them. I've also have a travel request in for the next TIA and TR8 and P25 steering committee meetings in San Diego next month. There'll be some homework for me to do on those standards, but I have voted on a couple recently. One of them involves vehicle activated panic calls through the mobile radio, and then also the location of some GPS coordinates within a transmission. There will be other items to cover as well, so I will have some late night reading to do over the next month or so. The National Council of SWC's Governance Committee just held a meeting at DPS headquarters yesterday. I was happy that I was able to convince them to visit our beautiful metro area, and they all seemed to enjoy it. The agenda items range from social media to general what's the direction of NICSWC going to look like going forward. And it was an all-day meeting. We covered a lot of materials, and conversations that were had there gave me some ideas on how to help revitalize our own RICs as well. And I'll be implementing that strategy here with some coordination of Chair Buffington and the User Group Committee and Operations Committee going forward. Outreach to counties and local stakeholders is going very well. So far, I've been able to visit or schedule visits with 11 of 99 counties and associated stakeholders, and I think I'm pretty close to nailing down a date with number 12. So I'm trying to expedite this process as much as possible, but there are some scheduling difficulties with getting necessary stakeholders at the table. But it's something that's very important. And as we draft policies, I want to make sure I get enough feedback in from every county and every dispatching agency as possible so that no one gets left out in the cold on these policies, because really these have to work for everybody. They have to be universal. I've been answering questions on the benefits of Isicsb, the radio platform, and interoperability in general, including user levels. And I've also explained that, if counties just want to use Isicsb for interoperability, that's okay. That's what it's there for, is when, things are going down and you need to call for help, just turn the dial and jump on Isicsb and someone will hear you. And my point to them is that as long as the path to Isicsb is there for them to utilize, everything should be good as far as I'm concerned. So there's been lots of questions on things such as user levels, and I've been helping them with that as well. One of the biggest things that obviously has been presented to me is the desire to have a working radio network across the state, and I think we'll have that taken care of here in the next several months. One other thing that has been brought to my attention is that there is a strong desire for more training opportunities as well. So I'll be discussing options with Chair Pavlik over the next several weeks and months to try to get some more things set up with regards to dispatching and even coordinating with some other large-scale exercises like COMEX that Jim Lundstedt just covered before. One thing that I also talk to the counties about is that when the sites are live, I plan on returning if I'm visiting them before the sites are live, and I plan on coming back with several radios from manufacturers that are listed here in alphabetical order: Harris, Kenwood, and Motorola. I'd like to have all three at least if possible, just to show that the platform is universal, and it doesn't matter what brand you use as long as it abides by the P25 standards, it should work. If I've left any vendors out, please let me know. I want to make sure that this is as all-encompassing as possible. And, of course, we'll have to get them programmed for the Isicsb talk groups, but we'll take things one step at a time first and see if we can get radios from all the different manufacturers on the table. So we've also covered some aspects of FirstNet and broadband. However, Many are content with their current setups and broadband operations for now, and I think part of that is because the FirstNet network and some other broadband networks are being implemented, deployed, and built out at this point. So most areas, I think, are going to maintain the status quo. And it fits their general usage at this point, which a lot of them use it for just dispatching software such as Mock at this point. So they really don't have a heavy user load invested in broadband at this point yet. So I've been working with them on timetables for when FirstNet may be coming to their area, and then also trying to help them through any processes that they may need to go through in order to join FirstNet if they so desire, or answer other questions on broadband in general. The other thing that we talk about with regards to broadband is the concept of total interoperability across the state. This encompasses both the use of LMR and broadband, and also potential 911 tie-ins as well, because the thing that's been talked about at the federal level is that emergency response is basically all one big ecosystem, and you need everything in that ecosystem to operate well for an emergency response to work well. So been talking to them about aspects of that, and also learning quite a bit about their counties and the issues that they face. No county so far has been exactly the same as their neighbor, so that's been good for me to hear all of that. One thing that I do want to also talk about is I've had a chance to meet up with some stakeholders in other counties at some EMA meetings. I had a chance to travel to Mahaska County last month to answer some questions on the Isicsb platform, coverages, capacities, and general advice on interoperability there as well. And I'm not counting that as an outreach visit to stakeholders for that county. I'll be returning to Mahaska at some point in the future. One thing that has been a heavy lift for the committees, including the encryption committee, has been whether or not we're going to be able to look at potential uses for encryption on Isicsb with interoperable talk groups. And I'm here to report that we have found needs for that. Captain Ness was there, and Sheriff Roder was there, and I think everybody in this room that was present for that meeting I've talked to, so thank you for that. Chair Buffington and Wally in the audience is on that committee as well. Rhonda McKibben is in the back, and so is Rob Dennert, so thank you guys for your participation. I look forward to the next meeting. The next meeting is just set for September 28th at the Iowa County Sheriff's Office. And the next step that we have to figure out now that we've established that there is some need for encrypted interoperable talk groups on the Isicsb platform is devices. The one thing that I want to make sure of as we go through this is that if we're going to do this, we get a device list out to stakeholders right away so that they can make informed purchasing decisions based on, A, if they desire to have encryption on their interoperable talk groups, and B, so they know what to buy, so that they don't buy a radio at one point in time and then down the road find out it's not going to work with that. So the device list, I think, is a relative high priority with that. And again, this spans the vendor landscape. So the things that we're going to talk about next time are basically the standards that we need to have on that list for potential counties and dispatching agencies and other agencies to look at. And we're going to talk about some technical aspects as well, such as how keys work in those radios, benefits of multi-key versus single-key radios, and then also some of the more finer scale things where you get down into key numbering. Some radios will not work with each other, even if they're using the same encryption key, but that key material is in a different slot number. So we need to sort through the nuances with that as well, and hopefully we can have a device list out in the next few months. Again, that list should encompass all vendors and various models. So that's the goal with this, is total interoperability across the vendor landscape and everything associated with that. We also need to look at some policies that may lead into encryption key slots potentially being reserved for interoperability. Conceptually, this would be relatively similar to saying that if you have an Isicsb radio, it's going to have an Isicsb talk group in it. So that's the concept that will follow. Our timeline for this is relatively long, but I want to make sure we get it right the first time because we have a lot of people counting on this. And I'm expecting the overall process to be completed within about 12 to 30 months. So it could go faster, it could be slower. It just depends on what we meet along the way. Last month, I also had a chance to meet with Warren County on some zoning issues with an Isicsb site. Went down there with Chair Lampy and discussed some things with the county stakeholders. And then we also had a chance to meet with DNR stakeholders after the fact, and I'm pretty confident that a solution will be found soon. And I've also been in contact with Doug McCaslin from Warren County, their 911 coordinator, about potential other sites as well. So we are well on our way to solving a few of the issues that have arisen with the network. One thing also, it has come to my attention that a statement came out in the minutes of a public meeting that the state is going to hire a consultant for $300,000 to help users join the Isicsb platform. I'm here today to tell you that this is absolutely false. It is 100% false, and I want you to be aware of that. Since I've been here, I'm not aware of any of you approving something like this, so please correct me if I'm wrong. The only thing that I have been able to dig up is an old staff study that was written by former SWIC Allen, that was presented by Bob Uni, that covered the idea of helping users get through the paperwork, UGC process, and acclimated to the system once joining. However, that is as far as it went. It was never adopted by the board that I'm aware of. No funding was ever approved for something like this. And given the fact that this was brought up so long ago, my interpretation is that that staff study has come, gone, and has since passed on. And I'm not expecting any more things like that to pop up. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that. And then finally, on a high note, we recently participated at the ComEx event at Camp Dodge that Jim Lundstedt talked about last Thursday and Friday. We had an STR trailer and several Isicsb programmed radios available for use. I think we were able to demonstrate the dexterity of the Isicsb network via patching, and also the Isicsb STR trailer in general as well. A lot of people were very curious about the capabilities of it, and I think we demonstrated that very well with the patching capabilities, the generator, and everything else that is inside of it, such as a stockpile of radios that are interoperable in situations like that. The ComEx exercise was a success, and I plan on working with Colonel Hedgepath a lot going forward in the planning of the next one. I think we could also use this as a means to expand exposure for the STR trailers so that they get utilized a little bit more. And then also, Chair Pavlik and I and Colonel Hedgepath will be discussing some potential for training opportunities for ComLs and ComTs. So that'd be a good way to get more of them certified and trained as well, which is something that we need. So with that, I will yield to the board if there are any questions.
Questions for Chris? Covered a lot of ground there too.
Yeah, it's been a busy month.
You'll have plenty more coming. So, okay. Moving on. Blake.
Good morning. Just a couple things for your consideration today. The council approved 9 GIS grants. Can you do the overhead projector, please, Ethan? Up there is the latest and greatest text 911 map and where it's available in Iowa. So as you can see, it's definitely filling in at this point. If a PSAP or a county is not capable of text 911, they're probably aware of the some of the issues that we're working through. Our contract to continue this project with the CPE vendors expires in a month. That doesn't mean that the project stops. It just means that we'll have to find alternate methods to get to text to 911 after that time frame. And finally, and I mentioned it last month as well, but just a reminder, October 2nd, in conjunction with the Iowa APCO NENA conference, I'll have a half-day program update as well as 911 Service Board best practices panel presentation. So that registration link has been sent out a number of times. If you still haven't seen it, if you still want to register, just get in touch with me and I will get you that link. Again, October 2nd in the afternoon. Any questions?
Blake, I have one.
Yep.
You mentioned the contract's going to end for the text to 911 process.
Correct.
So after that, is there going to be any local expense that for these counties that are white that they would incur on their own?
You could, if you want the integrated method, that is the right over the call taker screen. That's kind of the end state solution for text 911. You're more than welcome to cover that bill. If you want a free solution, which is the web browser solution, you and I can have that conversation and we can continue to move forward that way. So like I said, there's a couple different alternative methods on how to continue.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Thanks, Blake. User Group Committee, Buffy.
Yeah, thank you. The user group committee wasn't necessarily a brief meeting, but business-wise, we later in the agenda will be approving Jasper and Wright County for access, and then we spent the remainder of our time working with Arlene Torres and her group on the UGC skip goals. So that's all we did.
Very good. Okay, Finance Committee is, Kelly, are you on the phone? Nikki Whitaker.
Nikki Whitaker is on the phone. I'm the vice chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Nikki. Go ahead.
I just want to report the financials. The current general fund balance for the board is $161,092.05. The grant, the SLIGP grant, is at $358,271. The Finance Committee met and approved the SWIC's upcoming travel that he mentioned earlier to Arlington, Texas for that meeting, and we also approved quote of $345 for some reflective decals to go on the STR trailers to identify them as Isicsb vehicles. One other thing that I wanted to mention to the board is that the state budget requests are due October 1. As you're aware, the board has typically received an annual general fund appropriation of $154,661. During the last round of budget cuts, that was reduced to $115,661. The board may want to consider recommending that be restored. So that was a difference of $39,000 for the upcoming FY 2019 year.
Okay. You said that the committee had approved travel. Do we as a board need to vote on that travel expense of that? So hearing
No.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What'd you say, Nikki?
I believe you just you just need to accept the report. I would suggest that the board consider making a motion to restore the state general fund budget request for FY 2019 to the prior level.
Okay.
I would recommend that as a motion.
Okay. Hearing the report, does anybody here have any other questions for Nikki before I entertain any motions on what she is proposing?
Does that need to be an specific agenda item?
I'm not sure as far as the travel request, the $345 for the decals and stuff. I'm not sure if we need to approve that at all. I mean, it falls underneath that, expenditure that they're allowed to take. What we have done in the past is had that as an agenda item, and this is something that has been ongoing for quite some time. It's just the first time that we actually had been, dropped a little bit. In the past, what have we done here, John?
Well, technically, you're supposed to have it on the agenda. However, with respect to time, it would not. I probably do a vote on it.
I think I would agree with you on that, largely because we're not guaranteed the money anyway. If we say that we'd be in favor of wanting that funding to go back to full levels. That's basically what we're asking for. We're not asking. We're not basically not putting money in our coffers. We're just asking, saying, look, we'd be in favor of putting it back to our levels of funding.
Previous funding level.
Agreeable?
I just want to make sure we're doing it proper.
Absolutely. Great question. Great question. And if, quite honestly, if we move forward with a motion on it and we end up being wrong, I don't see what we're out.
Next month, we could ratify it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We could ratify it after next month, but we could also get it going as well. So that being said, I'll open the floor to.
Finance Committee.
Okay. To restore the funding level for the following fiscal year to,
Ask for that.
okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, both of you. Any further discussion on that? Great questions. Okay. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of it, vote by signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion passes. Okay. Moving on. Anything else from the Finance Committee? Nikki?
No, thank you.
All right. All right, moving on to governance. Chair Benson, go ahead.
Actually have nothing to report because the scheduled meeting fell upon the holiday, and then immediately after the holiday, the hurricanes came in, and I had no chance to do anything with it. So,
Okay.
but we do have provisions going into the next month based on schedules and everything else that we will pick up where we left off between myself and Vice Chair Ness.
Thank you, sir. Operations, moving on. Ms. Crable.
Yes, the Isicsb Operations Committee conducted a phone conference meeting on August 16th, and we discussed the new goals that had been set for our committee, and we tried to prioritize those. Following that meeting, I had a phone conference with Chair Lampy and Swick Myers concerning those goals and the importance of those goals with our committee and the technology committee in accomplishing the total interoperability. One of those goals of the Ops Committee, Chair Lampy and Swick Myers would like to see accelerated, is the goal assuring that 95% of all dispatch centers have access to Isicsb. So with our committee, our first priority will be to identify the PSAPs within the state. And once those PSAPs are identified, we can assess the capabilities and the ability to install control stations or some other means for them to have access to the statewide interoperability systems. So that's where we are.
Okay, moving on. Chair Hagan on the Outreach Committee.
We had our web call with Arlene Torres, getting our outreach agenda figured out, our goals and stuff, and so we're working on that. That's all I've got to report.
The skip is taking over. A lot of work put into that. Let us, we can utilize it going forward. So, okay, thank you, Ellen. Moving ahead to First Need Outreach, Sean Wagner. Okay, is there anybody that could? I don't see John Spell anywhere either. All right, we will be skipping the First Net Outreach specialist. Training Committee, Chair Pavlik, are you on the line?
She is not.
Wally, could you take over this?
This will be extremely brief. I was not on the last training committee call, and with these recent hurricanes possibly spinning up multiple resources and EMAC agreements, I haven't been as involved in board level meetings as I would like to. But what I can update you on is the INTD, the Incident Tactical Dispatcher course, which was one of our ICTAP requests, is still on schedule for November 13th through the 14th, and that's at the DPS building downtown. The previous week is IAMSA, the Iowa EMS Association, so I know some of us will already be in Des Moines for that, and I know we didn't want to co-locate on those weeks, but registration is open, and it's obviously geared more towards the dispatching and 911 side of the house, but that class is available. Other than that, that's really the only thing that I know of in the training piece.
Oh,
I,
go ahead.
I have just something to add. Wally, thank you for filling in today.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I think we may need to verify those dates, so I have it down as being November 13th through the 16th. I thought it was
Oh, you know what?
a 4-day class.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
I've scratched out a note quick so that I was organized in case I got called on, and you're right, I wrote that down wrong.
No worries.
Yep, it is
No
a
worries.
4-day class.
And I do have an update from Chair Pavlik on that. So far, we have 10 registered attendees, and that's good, but we'd like to see more. I would really like to see us get up to the point where they need to call in an extra instructor to help out, and I think that limit is 20 or 25. So if we can get that many people attending that course, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wally, I've got one quick question also. For the existing COMLs, have you guys started a recertification process for the existings?
Right now, our current credentialing policy does not address re-credentialing or recurrent training. That is something that I think that the training committee should take on and begin discussions on. And I've had some offline discussions with some federal partners to find out what do other states do or what's a common practice. And like anything, you find it's all over the board from nothing to being very specific and almost in some of the states, especially in the western states that see the forestry fire issues, they're fairly stringent on making sure that you're current in order to act in that role. Obviously in Iowa, we are finding that no matter how much we try, we never quite get enough training opportunities to get enough people signed off. And so I think we got to find whatever that balance is that keeps the skill set fresh, available, and the person's competent to act in that role if they go to an emergency or an incident, but yet it's still maintainable. And so I think that's a great question, and the honest answer today is that we don't have an answer for you, but definitely one we need to take on. And that might even be a good a skipped goal to look towards as we start looking at those in the plan.
Okay, I was looking at, for my COML recertification, I was like, what do I need to be doing in the interim here to be ready? So
currently, once you're credentialed, there's no sunset or expiration on that, and there's no documented requirement for recurrent training. So if you're once you're signed off, you're good. I'm not saying that's the way we want to do it forever, but the way it's written right now, there's no sunset.
Wally, since I'll be speaking with Colonel Hedgepath on COMEX this Friday, I believe, is that something that you would like to see incorporated into that as well? Not only perhaps getting new COMLs and COMTs certified by participating in COMEX, but also the recertification of COMLs and COMTs?
Well, obviously, any COMEX it's an exercise. That's the ideal place to do these training scenarios. I mean, we want when the real emergency happens, you want people that are ready to fill the role. Granted, we're always learning, right? So even in the real deal, we walk away with things that we can say, hey, we could have done better, or things that we won't do the next time, or things we will do. So obviously, we take training in the real deal, but the COMEX environment is a great way to learn. It's a great way to make a mistake and be able to build upon it and not have a side effect that we have to live with. So I would, yeah, absolutely. That may be another element in the COMEX that would be geared more towards the recertification, or excuse me, re-credentialing, when I use the right term, the re-credentialing as opposed to those that are in their initial phases.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Anything else for me?
Ellen, did you have a question? Oh, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Wally. Technology Committee, Patrick, you're still on the line, please.
Yes, I am. The Technology Committee met on the 25th of August and 5th of September. And so I've got a list of things here to go through. The first item is an update on the low power channels, that the 6 channels that were approved. I did get some questioning from the coordination people about, how we were going to use these channels, et cetera, how much power. And so I sent back some information. I worked with one of our technology members to get some of that information sent back to those people so that we can keep moving forward with the 6 channels to be added as far as scene of action channels. One of the discussions that came up with that member was the possibility for adding air-to-ground channels and higher power 800 meg channels. The air-to-ground channels would fall in the 700 meg band. I think that's something, we're not going to do anything with it right now, but we're going to explore that in future technology committee calls. So we may be coming back in the future to see about adding those as a part of our list of frequencies in the overall scheme. So we're still working on that. We'll advise as we move forward on that. One of the things that I did last month was I jumped on one of the governance or operations calls, and this 2014-03 policy that is sitting out there. Fast forward through all of the discussions with this, kind of came to the decision that we should just leave this alone for right now until the encryption part is worked out through the work with the Myers and the committee that's dealing with the encryption. Once that stuff is more settled and defined and laid out, then we can come back and look at this 2014-03 policy in the future and decide how to proceed accordingly. So that's where we're at with that. Basically, just going to let it lie. The last item was this programming guide that we've been working on. Our discussions went all over the place with this programming guide, and so short history of this programming guide is that I had worked with Helen Trajanovich back in June to take some of the wording modeled by the standards group to try to develop a programming guide. And we kind of kept it as general as much as we could, but we were spending so much time trying to find the right wording when we already had other things that would be more useful. Hence, the document that was printed out or sent to everybody, which is the redacted version of that programming guide that was developed by Rob Denner. You probably have it in front of you. It's got all the black marks on it, and it looks like it's got confidential written across it, but it really has no information on it at all. The technology committee really felt that it would be best if we just didn't try to develop standards as far as the wording part of it. And so one of the things that I did was I took what we had drafted as far as a standards policy, if you will. It's not really a policy. It's just a draft document. I sent it over to Jason Hoffman and had, said to him, hey, take a look at this. See if this is something that you could use within the standards group, refine it, do whatever you want, trash it if you want, and, basically get back to us. So we basically abandoned the trying to write wording for standards. And so if you look at this redacted version of the programming guide, the idea is once we gather all of the technical information that would be plugged into a subscriber unit, we would populate this document with all of the frequencies, the access codes, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the other discussions that came up with this redacted version of this programming guide was, do we make it public knowledge or do we make it confidential? I think ultimately we're going to ask the board to make a decision on whether this should be an open document or if it should be kept confidential. If the board decides in future meetings to make this confidential, well, then we would have to look at other routes possibly with the AG's office on how to handle that. So one of the things that the technology committee would like the board to do is spend some time looking at this. I know there's not much to look at, but be thinking about whether this should be a public document or if it should be kept kept private. We're not seeking any action on this today. We just want you to look at it and consider it. Some of the other things that came up within this discussion was, there isn't the access to some of this information as it's already been adopted isn't known much by the vendors and radio technicians, et cetera, et cetera. And I keep telling people we have this stuff, we have this information already on the web page, the Isicsb web page, through the ICS 217A, the Isicsb MC 12B. We have all of this stuff on the website, but people don't know it's there. And so I had sent an email to the outreach committee chair and had also talked to Slick Myers about this. And really asked them to take those procedures that are in place and get them pushed to the front of that web page so it's a lot easier to find this information. Granted, it's not Isicsb system information, but it's interoperability. And so as we move forward with developing this programming guide, even these low power channels, we'll start attaching these things, whatever is public knowledge, we'll attach it to these other procedures and information that exists, but we got to get it into a section of that web page where people can find it easily without having to go through layers and layers of this web page to find it, because my understanding is it seems like there's a lot of people that don't even know it's there. So that pretty much concludes all of it, but please take into consideration that document, because we will be coming back to get a decision from the board as to whether to take that redacted version and make it public or private. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Patrick, this is Ellen. Thank you for bringing that up. I just got back from vacation last night at 1:30 and was looking through my emails as you were speaking, and I came upon that. And that makes perfect sense to me. That stuff just has to jump out at you when you go to the website to find stuff. I think it's a tough website. It's getting better, but I think there needs to really be something that says, okay, here, click here. This is obvious, because people are going to need that. And we want that available.
I agree. One question I had, this is Jason, Patrick. I know that you and I spoke about this, but maybe you can inform the rest of the board on this. When you talk about making the document public or private information, are you talking about the document itself that you sent out for us to take a look at, or are you talking about the populated document after
Well,
get it?
Okay, so if you look at this document, there's no information on it. But once we make the final decision as to how it's going to be populated, and it becomes populated with that technical information, because that's what it's for, we would want to adopt it as an Isicsb programming guide, so there would be some action on that, but then we would also need to take action on, okay, do you feel that this information can be made public, or do you feel like this is something that should be kept private, if you will, or confidential, and attach a non-disclosure agreement with it? Let me just say this much. Some of the technology members don't feel that it's worthy of being confidential, while others do. So I guess you could say it's kind of split down the middle, but the technology committee felt that it was really the board's decision to decide whether it should be a public document or a private document, and then it's got the rubber stamp on it, and then it's no question.
Thank you. Any other questions for Patrick? Okay. Moving past the other reports, which we've already covered earlier, we're going to go to old business with Terry McClanahan. Are you on the phone? Standards Working Group. Any other members of that here? Your report? Go ahead.
I can fill in a little bit briefly. We've had several standards that are being reviewed at this point. None of them have been ready to pass on to governance right now. We are going to seek some feedback from some other committees on their input and recommendations for them. And then there's also some general comments that need to be resolved within the policies. But at this point, there's not a whole lot to report there. There's probably about 8 of them that are on the table at this point, and those will hopefully be bubbling up to governance before too long.
Thank you, Chris. Moving to new business. Chair Buffington, I'll let you take over the approval.
Okay, the user group committee has reviewed and considered the Jasper County application for access to Isicsb, as well as the Wright County. Jasper County is intending to use a single radio as an interface to their current operational system. Wright County would come in, would be adding assets as well as using it operationally. I guess I don't know if you want to do these separately or if we can do them together. I'll leave that to the board.
Do them separately.
Separately. Okay. Well, with that, I would make a motion to approve Jasper County as a level 1 user for access to Isicsb.
Second that.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Marty. Any further discussion on Jasper County's approval?
One thing we had on that Jasper County, because they're going to use an interface device, that it's going to be on demand only. It's not going to be turned on all the time, because we discussed that in the approval process.
Okay. Thanks for more info, discussion. All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve Jasper County under the Isicsb platform. Hearing no other further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Go ahead, Andy.
Okay, with that, I would also make a motion to approve Wright County as a level 4 operational user for access to Isicsb.
Thank you. And a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Dave, for the second. Any other discussion on Wright County's application process? Hearing none, we'll move forward with all those in favor of approval of Wright County under the Isicsb platform signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, anything else? That's all the new business that we have. I'll open up the floor for public comment. Nobody on the phone either. Crickets. All right. So hearing no other public comment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, John. We're adjourned.